The Chinese caused the recent horrific fires in Hawaii by blasting laser beams from space. So we hear from people on the other side of the world. And here's the important bit. They claim to have solid evidence confirmed by NASA and carried in the mainstream media that China's green space lasers are real. They're an unknown quantity, and earlier this year they did fire lasers in the skies over Hawaii. Ooh. Now you and I know, because we're just normal people, we're not brainwashed by the media, that this whole story is just ridiculous. China didn't start the fires with laser beams. But how did the tale evolve? And what does it teach us about how global mistrust is created? And who's creating this mistrust and why? To answer those questions, let's work backwards from today. So on social media, on YouTube and elsewhere, people are blaming China for the fires on the island of Maui and are reminding each other that on January 28th, 2023, a telescope caught sight of a Chinese satellite firing green lasers at Hawaii. Ooh. This was at the same time that a Chinese balloon was seen over US skies. A balloon! The following day there was a mysterious and dangerous oil spill in Hawaii. Oh no! Talk show host Tim Pool and his guests recently talked at great length about this Chinese satellite and shared the images of the green laser beams over Hawaii and indicated that this showed that China really could be behind the recent fires.
How hard is it to start a fire? It's ridiculously easy to start a fire. And they can fire lasers? Okay.
It's a little challenging to get the fire to spread, but there were hurricane level. It said it was like hurricane level winds, or there's
I don't
heavy high winds.
So they're saying
if they can start 50 fires all at once with a sequence of satellites doing high burst, high energy lasers, then getting fire to spread isn't really the issue, because you make the fire instantly in a bunch of different places.
And they can monitor the weather in Hawaii. I mean, you could just Google that. Like what I was reading from the National Guardsman who's making a statement was that, you know, there's low humidity and high wind, so that's perfect conditions for wildfires to spread, which means any arson fires would also spread as quickly. Like China is perfectly able to say, like, this happens to be a dangerous period for fire in Hawaii. Perhaps now, if they were to do something. There was also a Chinese balloon observed above international waters near Hawaii in February 2022.
Wow.
These seem like perfectly pleasant young men and women, but the degree of suspicion for the Chinese brainwashed into them is absolutely terrifying. Now, over on X.com, Chase Gaser thinks that Chinese weapons, or maybe a directed energy beam, could have been the cause of the oil spill, which would make the fires a follow-up attack by the Chinese. With the current wildfires in Maui igniting in the same vicinity as the spill, one can't help but speculate if this is truly a natural disaster or a malevolent plot rooted in geopolitical tensions. In the interplay between the mysterious events in Hawaii and the broader geopolitical landscape, one thing is clear. As China continues to strengthen its alliances and flex its technological prowess, the US is more vulnerable than ever. Now, the underlying message here is exactly the same as the underlying message in the mainstream media. A certain non-violent developing country that hasn't fought a war in 40 years is dangerous, while the world's richest and most militaristic nation is delicate and vulnerable. This ludicrous assertion, if accepted, leads to only one possible conclusion. Americans must urgently do three things: spend more on guns, spend more on guns, and spend more on guns. UK, EU and Australia are also getting the same message from their media. The main problem in the world is that the Chinese are dangerous, and not enough public money is being diverted to guns, to the military, to arms dealers, heroes of our world. What a world we live in. But what did happen in January in the skies over Hawaii? Yes, there was a Chinese satellite there, and yes, NASA did confirm that. And yes, it did have laser equipment on board. In fact, scientists on all sides, American and Chinese, know exactly what that was really all about, because it's public knowledge. China launched an environmental protection satellite called Da-Chi-1, filled with instruments for comprehensive monitoring of the atmosphere. It uses laser beams and other technology to monitor fine particle pollution, pollutant gases, including nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide and ozone, and also carbon dioxide concentration levels. And you know, it did pass over Hawaii that night with its laser detectors doing their job. But here's the problem. Many people, including some mainstream media, reported that perfectly ordinary story in a problematic way. Newsweek, to take just one example, did a fact-check report on the story. If you read the long article all the way through, you would eventually get the truth, that it was a Chinese satellite that measures atmospheric pollution. But who reads long articles all the way through these days? Not many people. Most people just saw the headline. And the headline had a very suspicious tone about it. China's green space lasers in Hawaii. What we do know, what we don't. I mean, what that headline is really saying is this. Oh yes, China's green space lasers are real. There's a lot we don't know about them. Thus, readers are left with the belief that a scientific tool to monitor global pollution for the world's scientists is properly described as China's green space lasers. You know, the brilliant Australian commentator Caitlin Johnston looked at the news stories today, which are filled with the US making military deals with countries in Asia, and asked the question we should all be asking. If the US alliance isn't preparing to wage war against China, then why does it look exactly the same as what it would look like if the US alliance was preparing to wage war against China? We must all unite to stop the US using its wealth and its control of the mainstream media to start a war in Asia, which it will then blame on the Chinese. They are powerful. It won't be an easy battle. Still, the grasshoppers may be big, but there are more of us ants. Peace.